Hello. Today I'm working in my large dilutions art journal and I pre-jezzoed this page before I started filming. So now you can see I'm laying down two different colors of Gina Wickly Media paint, and the first color you see in the center of the page is apricot, and now I will begin putting down Sedona on the border of the page. Now I'm working wet on wet, meaning I'm not drying the paint in between laying down color, so some of it will blend a little bit, which is what I want. And I'm just laying down this base layer, so right now you're not seeing a lot of blending. But in a minute, when I go back in with my brush and just a little bit of paint, I do start to do a dry brushing technique to bring those two colors together. When I sat down to work in my art journal today, I was thinking about winter and how cold it's been. And especially, I want to give a shout out to the southern states right now, especially Texas. You guys are in my thoughts. And I was just thinking about how I was ready for spring and warmer weather. And so that was the inspiration of my page today, was just thinking about how ready I am for spring. So that's why I've picked these sort of warmer colors, a warm peachy color and this burnt orange Sedona. So as I mentioned, now I have that outside and the inside, and I'm just going to, with very little paint, start brushing over the top of all the layers that I created. Now, as I mentioned, these paints are still wet, so you're going to see that it's blending as I'm brushing over it. So I'm starting to carry a little bit of the Sedona into the center and the apricot to the outside, and I'm just going to keep working back and forth with very little paint on my brush until I get the blend that I want. I am trying to keep mostly that lighter color in the center and most of the dark color on the outside, but I want a little bit of transfer back and forth. So you can see I'm brushing some dark into the middle, and then I get some light paint and I brush it to the outside until I get the exact blend I want. And you can just keep doing this until you're happy with it. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. There's no time where it's like this is when the technique is finished. It's finished when you like it. So I'm just going to keep working back and forth. And I'm really especially liking in the middle where you can start to see those brush strokes. And I'm getting that because there's very little paint on my brush. And that's what I'm trying to really get mostly in the center of the page, is seeing those brush stroke textures. So like I said, I'm just going to keep working on this. And right about here is when I was happy with it and I let it dry. Now I'm using apricot again in my 4-inch brush, and I'm going to just make a half circle swipe. And this is a one and done. So I went from the top and went down, went from the bottom and went up, and that's it. Leave it alone and let it dry. And then I'm also using some gloss sprays in Ocean, and I just took the cover off and whacked it till I get a bunch of these little drops and drips. And then I let that dry as well. And I did let all of this air dry so that the gloss sprays didn't get that crackle texture they sometimes do when you heat them. So off camera, I did go and die cut a bunch of these flowers, and this is from the Tim Holtz Sizzix Wildflowers 3 set. And I die cut all this out of watercolor paper, and now I'm just going in with Distress inks. And you can see I just put a little bit onto my glass mat. You could also use a craft sheet, whatever you have. And I'm working on first doing all the stems in pine needles and peeled paint, and then I'm just painting in all the tops of the flowers in the 3 different colors of picked raspberry, wilted violet, and salty ocean. Also off camera, I got a piece of white cardstock and covered it with strips of washi tape and then sealed them all with a layer of Distress Collage Medium. And using the Gina Wickly Media Alpha Mask stencil set, I laid that over the top of my washi tape sheet and traced through each letter with a pencil and then cut out the letters with my scissors. And the result is what you see here, is that I've cut out an entire quote from that washi tape sheet, and it says, "Bloom where you are planted." And then I've just laid out all the letters onto my page how I want them to look, and I'm lifting each individual letter and then gluing it down with some Distress Collage Medium and laying them into place. And I find this is the best technique when you're laying down a bunch of words, because it makes sure that the spacing is how you want it, and you don't end up getting to the bottom of your page and realize that, oops, you don't have enough space to do your final word. Or also sometimes I get focused on what I'm doing and I put the letters down in the wrong order and I misspell words. So this is my little trick to make sure that I have everything placed correctly and it's spelled correctly. So I've worked all the way through and now these are all glued down. And now I'm going to place all those flowers that we colored earlier. And so what I'm doing is I'm tucking all of the stems behind the letters and then also weaving the flowers in between the letters so it looks like these plants and stems are growing up between and through the letter quotes here. So sometimes I'm having it come through the letter, like for example on the O and U, I tucked the stem so it looks like it's growing from the front to the back. And other times, like what I'm doing right now, is I'm weaving that stem through the E so it goes up and then underneath the center of the E and then under the top. So you can just do this however you want. There's no right or wrong way. I'm just wanting those flowers to look like they're not just floating on top of the letters or just sticking behind the letters, but actually growing up amongst the letters for a more organic, natural look. And I'm also taking care to make sure that where the flowers end up, they're not covering so much of the letter that I actually lose what it's trying to say. So the bigger areas of the flowers, I am trying to curve them so that they go off the actual letter. So here's another example. I wanted some of that stem to be under the L, so I just lifted it slightly, laid the flower back in place, and then I did add a little bit more glue under the L and also on all the other letters that I've lifted just to make sure that those don't lift again and come out of place since I have added extra things. And then I decided that I also wanted some flowers to look like they were coming from outside of the page growing inward to add to more of an organic nature garden feel. So I'm just using my scissors to trim the stem and have some of those elements be coming onto the page. And then I'll use the other half of the stem on the bottom of the page and tuck it under the letter A, as you can see I'm doing now. And then I'm just going to do the very last flower, and it's going to be growing from the bottom of the page and going off to the left side. And I'm going to tuck the stem so that it looks like it's growing from behind the letter P. And when I do this, I also took care so that I pushed the leaf to go through the letter P, the center of the letter P, and then the rest of it's growing out from behind it. So you can be creative with this and weave those flowers in between the letters so that it looks like it really is growing up amongst, like you do see with regular weeds. You'll see it in vines especially. It grows up and it's all interwoven. So with the placement of that last flower, this is how the page will look. And then I'm going in with a Stabilo All pencil in navy. This is a water-soluble pencil, so I'm just scribbling it on my page on the right side of the letter and then activating it with a wet pencil to add a very subtle blue shadow. And I'm going to do this to all of the letters, exactly the same steps. But I'm not going to do that on camera because it just gets a little bit boring to watch. But I did those steps for every letter. And now I have some white paint that I added some water to so that I could get these white splatters over the top of everything to bring it together. And I really think these white splatters did sort of bring the whole design together and just be that nice finishing touch. And now my page is complete. Thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to see what you're creating, so be sure to share your art with us on social media using hashtag #ArtJournalJunction. If you like this video and you'll want to see more from us in the future, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our mixed media projects and art journaling videos. Have a wonderful day.